Hi, my name's Robert Carlyle, and you're listening to the How to Survive podcast. When I like to sponsor a film podcast, I go on patreon.com/HowToSurvivePod. You might remember some of my films, like Trainspotting, Trainspotting 2, and this week's film, 28 Weeks Later, in which I play Don. Don't miss the action on patreon.com/HowToSurvivePod.
Sorry, Robert. I thought you were Scottish.
What's the problem? I'm in character. Hello and welcome to episode 205 of the How to Survive podcast. My name, as you may well already know, is Joe. But here's something you didn't know. Chris joins me. Hello, Chris.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm very well. Yeah, looking forward to talking about this week's film, given that it is set in our current hometown, sort of.
Yes. Well, we both live in the city of London.
Yes.
Greater London, for some of us.
And there's no greater city than London.
Yeah, London is the city in the movie. The movie is 28 weeks later.
Yes.
We covered 28 days later, about probably 65 months ago.
About episode 16 or so.
Long time.
Yeah.
One of our most downloaded. So I assume there'll be a huge number of people wanting to find our thoughts on the sequel.
Yeah, well, the sequel is equally beloved and popular, I'm sure.
Yeah. Danny Boyle back at the helm.
Don't worry about it.
Yeah. Oscar winner Danny Boyle not present. Replaced by Juan Carlos Fresnadillo, who you'll remember from last week's film when you announced that he was the director of this film, and we'll be covering it this week.
Yeah. The director that you'll remember from hits such as 28 Weeks Later.
The movie's from 2007, and that means that you have had 12 years to seek it out.
Yeah.
And get to grips with it. And stick your
fingers
fingers into its sockets to see what might happen. If that sort of spoiler fills you with rage, then go away and watch the movie. It's available on Amazon Prime to rent and all other streaming services, I'm sure, if you are inclined to seek it out there. Or buy the DVD.
Yeah.
It's a failing industry, isn't it, DVDs?
Yeah, it's not the most environmentally friendly either, I don't think. But then again, neither is streaming because of the huge electrical cost.
Is it true?
I believe so, yeah. So basically, there's no right answer. The world is doomed. Enjoy this podcast.
The movie itself, we'll be discussing it at length, at depth, and at breadth.
Yes.
Then we'll be talking about how to survive in it. And that's coming up after this.
London.
We're heading into District 1. Although District 1 is completely safe, outside the security zone, London remains a wasteland. There are a large number of bodies still left to be cleared from the original outbreak of infection.
We're nearly home.
How old are you, Andy?
12.
I think that makes you the youngest person in the entire country.
Welcome back.
And we miss you, Lucky, in your new lives.
I missed you so much.
This is what it's all about, gentlemen. Family starting again.
Did you like it?
It's amazing. Are you going to tell us what happened to Mum?
The last infected human died 6 months ago.
We weren't here 6 months ago.
Have you come into direct contact with the infected?
Execute Code Red.
It's probably nothing.
Quick recap of the plot, Chris, because maybe you haven't watched it today, like me.
On the way here.
Yeah, exactly.
The other day, just a little peek behind the curtain, the other day you said something like, which is better to...
Watch on a big screen.
Yeah. And what I was going to say was, well, don't watch 28 Weeks Later in public.
So I did.
Yeah. Get some funny looks on the Southwest train service.
I angled the laptop screen away from the children sat next to me.
That is good. That's all you need to do.
And the reason is because this happens. 28 weeks after Jim was rescued by Finnish fighter jets.
Yeah.
You remember Jim?
Yes.
Or
very well. Cillian Murphy.
Yes. Or
is he back?
Well, you may remember he also died in hospital.
Yeah.
From a gunshot wound.
Yeah.
Or also had a blood transfusion to save Frank's life.
Yeah.
Depending on which ending you adhere to.
Correct. Yeah.
He's not in it.
No.
Neither are any of the characters from the first one. So, husband and wife Don and Alice have taken refuge in a farmhouse with some other survivors.
Yeah.
Who I think they're related to, but whatever. The house is attacked by infected people, and Don and Alice become separated in the ruckus. Don has a chance to try to save Alice, but instead slams the door shut and jumps out the window.
Yeah.
And she's banging the glass and shouting, "Help me, help me." And he runs away, and she is pulled off screen by zombies and definitely dead.
Yeah. One of the best openings to a horror movie ever.
You think so?
Say. Yeah. Yeah. I absolutely believe that. Yeah. I think it's genuinely... I mean, you could almost end the film there. Like, it would be the best short horror movie ever.
Yes.
Yeah. I think I read somewhere on the internet, which means it's almost certainly not true, that Danny Boyle directed that.
That soon.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
But I just don't
It's got
that.
the In the House in a Heartbeat playing over it.
Yeah. This film manages to ruin that by playing... Like, so In the House in a Heartbeat is the famous bit...
At the end of 28 Days Later.
Isn't it? Oh, you're right. It is.
Because they throw him out. They think he's dead.
Yeah.
And he comes back as like a revenant, basically.
Yeah, well, it's that roiling like building.
Yeah.
Is it Clint Mansell track? I think, and it's the like it's got that climbing guitar thing. It's a very good piece of soundtrack, and it comes at the like dramatic climax of the film in some ways. Which suits the music perfectly. What doesn't suit the music perfectly is being used liberally 5 or 6 times throughout a film.
Whenever anything happens.
Yes, correct.
Anyway, it is a good opening.
Yeah.
But the rest of the movie has to follow, unfortunately. 28 weeks later, a NATO force led by the US has quarantined mainland Britain. A concentrated zone has been set up on the Isle of Dogs in East London.
For some reason.
Yeah. And residents are kept healthy and protected by armed patrols. All of the infected around the UK have been killed or have died of starvation.
Now, Canary Wharf is in Tower Hamlets, right?
Yeah, Limehouse. No.
Is that right?
Around there. Isle of Dogs isn't...
I'm pretty sure it's in the borough of Tower Hamlets, which is the most densely populated, I think, borough in London and one of the most deprived.
Really?
Despite the fact that Canary Wharf is in there.
It's a city, isn't it?
Yeah. I would say that early How to Survive tip, don't start the rebuilding of humanity in the most densely populated area of the most densely populated city in the country.
Why?
Because
it's got the most residences. Surely that makes sense.
Well, but they're in like skyscrapers, and the point is that there could be there's much more likely to be unknown infected people in a densely populated
they're dead.
area.
They all starved to death.
Well, yeah, but they didn't, did they?
They did. They all starved to death. Anyway, they were all dead from starvation, and we know that's a fact, and none of them survived. That's true. So flights are allowed back into the UK,
yeah,
and Don is reunited with his children, Andy and Tammy, who were away on a school trip when the outbreak hit. So they've been somewhere.
Yeah.
They are the first children to be allowed back into the UK for some reason.
Mm-hmm.
They immediately break out of the quarantine zone and return to their family home. There, they find their mother, Alice, somehow alive and well.
Yeah. Well, not well.
She's
thriving. Not thriving.
She's doing well for herself. She's never looked better. Eating maggots.
Yeah. And has turned feral.
All three are captured by the army, who detected the children fleeing. Alice is put through rigorous cleaning and tests. She is reunited with her husband, Don, who betrayed her, and they share a kiss. Unfortunately, Alice has a mutation, which means that she doesn't succumb to the rage virus, but can carry it, and she transmits it to Don, who instantly turns into a zombie and kills her. He breaks out, and before long, the entire quarantine zone is in chaos. The children fall under the care of Scarlett, an army doctor, and Doyle, an American army man.
Yeah, sniper.
Yeah.
An American sniper, you could say.
The army engages Code Red, which is a plan to contain all the affected people by force, and if that fails, just to firebomb the island with everyone on it. And that is what they do. Luckily, the children and their guardians and some other obviously doomed survivors
total red shirts.
Yes, they nip from North Greenwich to Regent's Park.
Well, okay. Do you want to get into detail about this later?
Yes.
Okay, right. We're going to go into granular detail about the route they take across London. Look forward to that.
They're to be picked up by another friendly army man, Flynn, the helicopter pilot. Last seen playing Lost in Michael.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Walt!
Yeah. They took my son
right out of my hands!
Yeah, he's good, isn't he?
Harold Perrineau?
Yes.
What has he been in other than Lost, the Matrix sequels, and this?
He was in Oz.
Right. I've never seen it.
So is your mate, J.K. Simmons. Plays a neo-Nazi.
Why is he my mate?
You'd love him, mate.
I do think he's good. He's a fine actor.
Yeah, but he's your best mate.
Yeah.
Upon arrival, Flynn refuses to allow anyone but Doyle to board the helicopter, and after massacring a zombie horde with his propeller, he leaves, telling them to meet him at nearby Wembley Stadium. Yeah. Which he just sees.
Yeah. And of course, they go via Big Ben, as any sane individual would.
Down past Big Ben, down into King's Cross Station.
No, down into Westminster.
Is it Westminster?
Station. Well, it's next to Big Ben, so.
But no, it's King's Cross.
Well, it's not though, is it? Because they drive down a set of stairs into a station.
That's King's Cross, mate.
What, you mean the interior is shot in King's Cross?
Sure, yeah.
Possibly. I don't know.
I don't think that's canon. They try to escape in a car, but Doyle is killed by some of his colleagues using a flamethrower. Scarlett drives into a tube station, and they head into the darkness below. After some tripping and staggering in the dark, Scarlett is killed by a marauding infectee. Andy is bitten, but luckily he survives due to sharing the same genetic mutation that protected his mother.
Well, the marauding infected man in question is their father.
The marauder. Andy and Tammy walk into a tube tunnel and arrive at Wembley Stadium.
Yeah, that's fine.
And there they are picked up by Flynn in the chopper and taken to Paris.
Yeah.
28 days later, the infection has broken out in Paris. That's the end of that. What did you think of 28 weeks later?
I think it's fairly decent as a sequel to 28 Days Later. Only partially suffers from sequelitis. Like it's a carrier of sequelitis, but it's genetically immune. I don't know.
It's a carrier and is forced to live like it has sequelitis.
Yeah, it jettisons a lot of the subtlety of the original, as we expect from horror sequels. I think Frenadillo is Frenadillo is fairly content, it seems, to direct it as a bog standard horror action sequel. When you compare it to 28 Days Later,
there's some interesting photography.
Yeah,
but most of it is just
it's not bad. It's just fairly unremarkable.
Yeah, exactly.
It would have been interesting to see Boyle and Garland's sequel. I think he was busy directing Sunshine.
Not Slumdog?
No, it was Sunshine.
You sure?
Also released in 2007.
Slumdog Millionaire
a couple of years later, 2009, I think. I mean, like I said, I mean, this is indicative of the abandoning of subtlety, using "In the House in a Heartbeat" 15 times, basically ruins it. I think, and also, I think Danny Boyle and Alex Garland are now
married,
talking
Dead?
About 28 months later.
Really?
Yeah. Which, okay.
Well,
fine. I'd probably rather see Alex Garland direct it, to be honest.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a very good director, isn't he?
Yeah, I've enjoyed his work in the past, and I think I'll enjoy it in the future.
Let's hope so.
Ex Machina, right?
Correct.
Yeah. See, I was paying attention.
Yes. And like I said, I think the introduction is just excellent. What did you?
It's more or less the pre-title sequence, isn't it?
Yes, yeah. It is literally the pre-title sequence.
Yeah.
What did you think?
It's got a few good moments, but it's mostly shit, is my opinion.
Okay.
It's not like shit like some of the slasher movies. Obviously, it's well made, but it's well made shit. It's just a nothing film. It's a fine, like, I don't care movie. If you know what I mean. But I'm not going to be thinking about this next week.
Okay.
The script is exceptionally clunky.
Okay.
Right, we'll come to that later. But I mean, it's a roller coaster of a movie, but more from like a palatability perspective than an excitement perspective. It's 15 minutes of like completely unbelievable and like contrived dialogue. Then a scene where something insane and shocking happens.
Mm-hmm. Then
a bunch of weird shots of like blood vials or guns or just like an establishing shot of the buildings, which they use like not sparing it all. It's like loads of like rubbish CGI mock-ups of London empty.
I disagree. I don't think it's rubbish at all.
You don't think it's rubbish?
No, I actually think it's quite a interesting and sober portrayal of what a post-pandemic London would look like.
It just looks like London with no cars.
Right, exactly. But it's like London with no people or whatever, and London with no power. But it is. I don't think it's that. It doesn't come across as completely CGI to me. No, I thought
there's some naff CGI in it though. Yeah, I'm sure you'd agree.
The helicopter,
all of it, just all of it. Any CGI is just dated now. Anyway, all that's followed by like another boring scene, then another shocking scene, and the ending is like so obvious. You've pretty much solved it in the time it takes you to get from Regent's Park to Wembley Stadium.
Yeah.
The middle twist is probably the best bit of the film.
Okay.
That being Begbie, Don kissing his wife, because like you're in his shoes for the beginning of the film.
Yeah.
You understand his motivation in running, and you admonish him for it, but you understand.
Yeah, I want to talk about this in depth when we talk about How to Survive.
Fine. But he is you have a lot of pathos for him.
Yeah.
He is a fairly well drawn character. You understand why he runs. You don't necessarily think it's brave, but you think, what would I do in that situation?
Yeah.
And his guilt is something that you think, oh, he's going to have to live with this.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you find out that Alice is alive and he has to confront her, it's like, oh God, this is
harrowing. Yeah.
It's the most dramatic thing you can imagine in a situation. Like, you left your wife to die and now you have to confront her.
Yeah.
And then within seconds you've murdered her because she's tied down and can't defend herself.
It's I think that scene's pretty well done and harrowing.
There's lots of very good set pieces in this film.
Yeah.
I say lots, 3. That, the intro, and probably the propellers chopping up the zombies. That's pretty funny.
It's pretty funny. I quite like the code red, everything going wrong sequence is quite good.
Yeah.
I think. It's that is definitely, I think, probably that including the intro is the best part of the film. It's quite a ballsy move to cast Robert Carlyle and then have him play a feral monster
for most of the film.
Yeah, actually, the cast stuck out to me as being particularly excellent in this because it's almost like it was some sort of proving ground for actors that would go on to do really interesting stuff. So you got Rose Byrne, you got Jeremy Renner, Idris Elba. Like it's
Imogen Poots from Green Room.
Exactly. Yeah, it's quite a few interesting actors, I thought.
It is good. It's good, but you to my point that it's like it's got good parts to it. It's like gold plated, but underneath it's just like this is just a normal film.
Yeah, I think Boyle and Garland were producing or executive producing possibly, and I think maybe
that means making money from it, but not really doing anything.
Yeah, probably. I mean, yeah, actually, maybe that's unfairly removing credit from the people who actually made it. I think what I was going to say was that might have insulated it from becoming too rubbish, but I think actually they probably didn't have much of a hand in it at all. I think it's serviceable and it falls down in comparison to its predecessor, which is no fault of its own, really, because its predecessor is
exactly. I mean,
classic of British horror.
How does it work as a sequel to 28 Days Later then?
I mean, I think the ways it just takes the way it's a sequel to the original is basically there are fast zombies. It's the rage virus, isn't it? It's the rage virus series.
Yeah, right.
Like that's the defining link between.
It's not thematically similar, really.
No.
Like 28 Days Later was patient and built a world of intrigue where you were in Jim's shoes and you didn't know what was going on, and it was all shocking and surprising and upsetting, and he was a great protagonist because you learned about the world in the same way that he did.
Yeah. I mean, that's literally like the most rote like writer's way of having a character get introduced to a new scenario, isn't it, really?
Because it's like in the middle of it.
Oh, he's woken up from a coma. And
I don't know.
Now we as an audience get to learn about the world as he does.
But I think the way it's done is like, maybe it's cliche, but it's like the most masterfully done cliche. Because of the shots of London, like
exactly, that's the calling card, isn't it?
Yeah, like those are astonishing shots, and they're not CGI, and they are much more involving and it's haunting, I think, than the ones used in 28 Weeks Later. Yeah. Anyway, 28 Weeks Later never, I think, had the chance to have that kind of an impact because the world is already established by 28 Days Later.
Yeah,
but it feels that they've just made a movie out of like what was the worst part of 28 Days Later, which is the army guys being pricks.
Right. Yeah.
So
I thought it was interesting that you're supposed to some extent, side with the army, I think, initially, aren't you? Because Rose Byrne and Jeremy Renner are sympathetic, and I think you're supposed to see Idris Elba as being like a tough general sort of figure.
He's shot like a villain.
Yeah, I guess so. You did mention that. I think I don't know. I think you're supposed to think it's us versus rage people until the army starts shooting everybody, at which point you're like, this is
the army
not
bad.
Good.
Yeah. I mean, army guys being pricks is far less interesting than like normal people adapting to life post-apocalypse. Probably. Yeah. Equally though, the story of the guy who betrays his wife and has to live with the guilt of it is much, much more interesting than children running around London dodging bullets.
Yes,
probably.
I think that's
it's a bit like from when they leave the island, it's pretty much just get on with it, I think.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah. The script I mentioned earlier, I've got some problems with that.
Yeah,
it's fucking clunky. Like,
okay, well, are you talking about the like
dialogue?
You specifically think the dialogue?
Yeah, it's like the opening shot is like Don and Alice, and they're
preparing
talking,
dinner.
Yeah, they hush tones, and she's like, "Oh, did you think we did the right thing by sending our two children on a school trip?"
Well, no, she's like, "Oh, thank God we sent our kids on a school trip."
Yeah, our children who are a boy and a girl, Andy and Tammy. And it's very like
spoon feeding.
Tell, don't show.
Yeah, true.
But that's not the only example. It happens like throughout, and there seems to be like little. Which must be a directorial choice. You don't see the character saying it, but you hear them say it. So there'll be like moments where you'll hear a character say something just as what sounds like it could be naturalistic, but it's something that no one would ever say.
Okay.
So there's a shot where they're running along the platform to each other, having just been reunited, the children and the father.
Yeah.
And Tammy saying to Andy like, "Oh, are you excited? Are you excited?"
Yeah.
And he's like, why aren't they just like running?
You're excited. Are you excited for something that's happening in 5 seconds?
Well, yeah, it's happening.
This is it.
Yeah. That's doesn't make
like
sense.
Hugging each other, and she's going, "Are you excited?"
Yeah, right. and like when they're getting fired on by the helicopter, and she's like, "They're shooting at us." It's like, well, yeah, why? Who are you telling?
It certainly doesn't have the
subtlety
that 28 Days Later had. Can we talk about London now?
I thought you'd never ask.
You and I, this is the first time I've watched this film since I have lived in London.
Yeah.
And obviously, when you live in a city, when you see it represented in cinema, things stick out to you.
Mm-hmm.
I plotted their route in this film.
Okay.
So
start on the Isle of Dogs.
They start on the Isle of Dogs, which is near Canary Wharf.
Mm-hmm.
They go through.
Do you explain that?
Canary Wharf is it's like East London, really, isn't it? It's like, what was it before? Like an industrial estate or something, or just like a bit of loose land?
It's basically the city. It's where all the banks and stuff are.
Well, there is the City of London, which is the city, isn't it? But that's where it's like a financial district in London almost. So they start in Canary Wharf. Mm-hmm. They take a tunnel under the river to Greenwich. Fine. Okay. So far, okay.
Plausible, yeah. Which is going south.
Yes.
And out of London.
Yeah. Then we next see them on the South Bank. Mm-hmm. Technically okay. Right.
Because they are south.
Yeah. It would take a while to walk.
Yeah.
And they seem to do it instantaneously. They then walk from South Bank to St Paul's. Fine. Across the Millennium Bridge. Perfect. That's where those things are. Into Soho, okay? Having to swerve a little bit west now into the centre of London. Not sure why you'd want to do that, but okay. Up via the British Museum to Regent's Park. Fine. All good. Heading in the right direction. Matey in the helicopter, he says, meet me in Wembley Stadium. And
he says the stadium.
The stadium, yeah. Yeah, he says the stadium, and you think, what, Emirates? That's probably closest to Regent's Park. Yeah. That would make sense. That's probably a couple of miles, if that.
Yeah. So
no, he's talking about Wembley, which is the National Football Stadium, which is northwest London.
Yeah.
Some distance from Regent's Park. If you're about to Google the distance, Joe, don't worry because I've already got it. Okay. They then get in a car and drive. And where they drive, Joe, is to Big Ben. Mm-hmm. Obviously, the tourist attraction.
Yeah.
Westminster. That's back on the river. So they've driven about 4 miles south, I think, to get there in the wrong direction from Regent's Park, if they're going to Wembley. But don't worry, because they swerve into a tube station next to Westminster Bridge. They then get out of the car and they walk from Westminster to Wembley. Now, Big Ben to Wembley is 13 miles. Yeah. If you plot it on Google Maps.
Above ground, probably.
Yeah, as the crow flies. Now, I'm going to wager that walking in the pitch black with no lights through unlit underground tunnels that aren't meant for pedestrians, that could be infested with the undead, is going to take... You're going to be walking slowly.
Yeah.
So 13 miles, that's probably a week.
Right.
It's absolute insanity. I mean, I know that you
feel like a film lad when you're watching it, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely. But then I think certain things are so egregious in the way that they stick out.
Can you, if you went up in a helicopter past the BT Tower, could you see Wembley?
Yeah, sure.
That's a real shot?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, because the BT Tower is sort of central London, West London. You could definitely see Wembley, I'm sure. Yeah, on a clear day. Yeah, because it's quite a standout, iconic building.
What, the BT Tower,
Wembley Stadium.
You're right.
Which was still being built when this film was shot. So it's all Cardiff's Millennium Stadium.
Yeah.
Which is the substitute.
Yeah. Fuck me, that's mental. That's so shit. And I like they just walk onto the pitch. It's like you can't just walk onto the pitch. No. It's like a fortress.
Yeah. No zombies in Wembley. That's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. There you go.
Abject.
Yeah. So that really that was a bugbear for me. I think it's fair to say.
I think there's a similar thing that happens in Spectre. Bond is making his way around London a bit, and you're like, there's a scene where a tube.
Oh no, you're thinking of Skyfall.
Yes.
A tube crashes through. I think it's called Aldgate Aldgate East or something like that, which is like the famous disused.
Aldgate East is used now. I don't know when you mean.
What is it called? I can't remember, but it's like a famous disused tube station.
And a tube just crashes through the wall, full of people, and he boards it.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Well, there's also the famous one in Thor: The Dark World where he arrives at like Waterloo Station and goes, "How do I get to Greenwich?" And someone says, "Oh, you go 2 stops down on this line," and you're like, "Fuck off."
I'd say what is good though.
Yeah.
Mission Impossible Fallout.
Yes,
that is like geographically accurate.
Perfect accuracy.
Runs across Blackfriars Bridge, doesn't he?
Yeah. Well, he runs. So in that, he runs from the bank area to the riverbank.
Over Blackfriars Station.
Over Blackfriars Station on the roof, drops down to the Tate Modern and climbs up the tower.
Yeah. Do you think the movie is more nasty than scary?
Like explain the question, please.
So compare it with 28 Days Later. 28 Days Later had like a lot of creeping around, not really knowing what's behind a door.
Did it? Yeah. I mean, it's more, being chased by huge crowds and stuff, isn't it? Yeah. Or like just,
There's some close-up horror.
I guess so, yeah.
But you never really know what's going to happen next. With this, you do know what's going to happen next. And it's just like gross out snarl fest. Like just close-ups of faces like... right? Which is unpleasant and not scary. It's just like, oh, turn it down.
Yeah. Please do, Joe. Turn it down.
And it's like, that's the movie, isn't it?
Yeah.
More than...
I mean, the most violent and unpleasant scene is where a man kills his wife by pushing his thumbs into her eyes, which is like a weird reference, I suppose, to the first film.
Yes.
Where Cillian Murphy's character does the same thing. Jim does the same thing. I mean, yeah, it is nasty. I think they're both nasty films. Neither one of them are, lovely. In the first film, Naomi Harris chops a man to bits as he like screams for his life. She like cuts him to bits with a machete. And you have all the we're gonna like keep these women here and rape them stuff.
It's true, I suppose.
I get what you're saying though, in that this is a bit more. They go a bit more all out with the
15-year-old
viscera
boy,
stuff,
violence.
Yeah, I guess so. But then also, I think it's less effective. I don't think it. I think, with the exception of when Don kills his wife, which is like deeply distressing and horrific. It's just
more of the same shit.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah,
like we've seen it all before. At this point.
It reminded me a bit of those, like, the early noughties films that we keep watching, which are just sort of tasteless violence.
Yeah,
that's what it sort of put me in mind.
That's exactly right. This is more like Cabin Fever than it is like 20 Days Later, I think.
Yeah, that's fair.
So with that all said and done, what would you do to survive 28 weeks later?
Well, Joe, firstly, what I would do is ask you the question, do you think Don makes the right choice in the opening sequence?
Well, it depends on your perspective. There's several. I'll talk you through my thinking, right?
Okay.
Immediately, yes. If his goal is to survive. I know we talk about net survival sometimes, but he does survive.
So does she.
But he doesn't know. This is my next point. Yeah. He doesn't know she survived.
Yeah.
He judged the situation correctly, I think.
He judged the situation that she was going to die.
Yeah, which she would have done had it not been for a Deus Ex gene.
Yeah.
Right? He does actually die because of his actions, though. So his cowardice in running, so said, is what causes his death ultimately.
Yeah.
But he couldn't have known that. So I think in that moment he acted valiantly in protection of his own life.
Yes, that's true. I think the film does a good job of sort of justifying it.
It makes
like, he can't save her.
It's a fait accompli. He can't save her.
He can't save her. He can't save the boy that's there with him with her. Yeah, like you said, she is basically, she's a goner, isn't she? And it's only due to her genetic anomaly that she...
you think like, or I'm sure you think like I do. It's like, I think I'd fight anyway.
You'd like to think so, I think. And I think that's part of why he feels so guilty, is that he feels like he's let himself down and let her down, right? And it's the classic thing of, oh, you know, if anyone tried to attack you, I'd fucking give them a pasting. Yeah. And then if you didn't actually do that, then you'd feel the guilt for the rest of your life.
It's situational. I think he is fine. She's a mug for not trying to fight. Standing there banging on the window rather than like... I
think everyone makes decisions that are true to their own morality, right? She sacrifices herself to try and save a child, and he tries to save himself rather than dying in a lost cause. And I suppose you could say that he's doing that so that his children won't be orphaned, which is a fair...
I don't think in that situation, it's not made clearly. He's not like... There's no like voiceover like, what about the kids?
No, but I guess not. But that is
what about my children that is aged 10 and 15 who were away on a school trip? School trip, by the way? What school trip applies to both ends of like the school age? Like there's a 10-year-old kid and a 16-year-old, and you're like, wait a minute, true. What school? Where have they gone? Abroad? What school? What school did they go to?
I like, although you said the thing about the writing giving too much away, I think there is one quite interesting line which, in which Imogen Poots' character says, basically makes reference to the fact that they've been in a refugee camp the whole time, and that they were like 20 people to a tent or something, which is quite interesting because that has implications about the wider world, but they don't go, of course, there were lots of people who fled the British Isles because of the pandemic, and they're all in refugee camps around Europe, and we were some of them, and there are 5,000 in the refugee camp that we, like, you know, it's none of that shit.
It reminded me in some places of like, there's a scene in Children of Men where, you know, the woman who's like the midwife?
Yeah.
Like, I think she's in a school, like a disused classroom because all the children don't exist anymore. And Clive Owen walks in, and Clive Owen, it's Carl Pilkington, isn't it?
Yeah. I got it. I just wondered if it was a slip of the tongue or...
No, it's deliberate. Right. And she's like sat there just like staring into space. She's like, used to be a midwife all those years ago. And it's like a monologue for like 5 minutes about... And it's just like, come on, it's a bit obvious.
Yeah.
It reminded me of that in places.
That's true.
Yeah. And I like Children of Men.
It's a good film. We should cover it at some point. Anyway, to answer your question, how would I survive? I would not volunteer to go back to London in the first place, for God's sake.
Just take your chances in the new place.
What possible motivation could you have?
See your father.
Come on. Fine. What about all the other people who are there? It's absurd. Like, what possible like reason? So financial, and you get to live in a box in Canary Wharf. That's basically it.
Yeah.
It's not worth
better
it.
Than a 20 men to a 10.
It's a devastated city. You're there just as what? Like, just an example that people can live in London.
Yeah.
Where's the joy or like value in that? I presume the United States is pretty much unaffected, because why would they be helping the UK otherwise? And that said, it's 2007 United States rather than 2019 United States,
right.
Which is a big difference. But yeah, like, why? What is in it for the people who are there?
Not dying.
But they do die, and you're closer to the thing that is going to kill you.
It is. I don't know. It's a contrivance that kills them, isn't it? It's not like the fact is, right? The 2 children were allowed back in, and it's like, why? No one can understand why the children were let in. It's just like a fluke of like. It goes against all the policies that have been established by this regime to have children in there, but they managed to get in somehow. Never explain why. Yeah. One of them has a genetic condition, which is just like, okay, the mum's got it. Yeah. Obviously. They find the mum. They go back. They leave the quarantine environment, go back to their house where they find the mum who is brought back, and that is the only reason. It's like 5 different coincidences, which are all like rubbish, that lead to the infection breaking out again.
Yeah. But just like, why? Like for the average person, what benefit is there to going back? There is none.
None. But they are like parentless children who need to be reunited with their father. You'd think.
Well, I mean, would you go back to London?
Not now. I mean, I'm moving out of London fairly soon.
Yeah, but I mean, would you?
So I'm done with it.
You're over it.
Yeah,
fair enough. Have you got any ideas?
Yep. Obviously, if you're Jeremy Renner, follow your orders and do your job properly.
What? Shoot innocent people.
Shoot everyone.
Why?
Because you've been told to.
Oh, you just do whatever you're told to do.
There's a reason for it. There's a contagion.
You're normally very anti-military.
I am, but this is how to survive, not how to be a
moral person.
Yeah, right. Renner, Hawkeye.
Yeah,
he's up there with his gun,
his bow.
Yeah, and he's picking people off. Bang, bang, bang. And he goes, and there's the guy. Bang, and then he's bang. He's bang, bang, bang. And he's loving it. He's bang, bang, banging. And then he sees the kid, and he's like, I can't do it because it's a kid.
Yeah.
Now he single-handedly in that decision destroys civilization, doesn't he?
So your understanding is that in Paris he ends up infecting
He's
someone.
patient 0 for Paris, yeah.
Okay. In that case,
he goes in there,
yes.
does the French kissing.
Yeah. In that case, you're correct, yeah. Yeah. I mean, he's obviously got some sort of moral code, isn't he?
Fine, but then don't be in the army.
Yeah, I mean, that's true.
In the beginning, he's like, I need to see combat. I have to fucking shoot people. I love shooting people. Give me some people to shoot.
Yeah.
And then his orders like, stop this fucking disease break. The reason we're here is to contain the disease. Don't let it break out. And then he's like, no, I'm just going to let the disease break out.
Yeah.
Like, I don't give a fuck. Like, you can say what you want. He didn't follow orders, which is you get discharged for that. And you can certainly get discharged for being dead, can't you? He gets discharged by his comrades when they burn him alive.
Yeah, that is a pretty thorough dischargement, I would say.
So there you go. Anything from you?
Yeah, I've got one more, which is a criticism of their procedure during the red alert phase, which is that if you lock all your civilians in one room, you should probably post some guards on the doors as well.
Yep.
Because this is an absolute dereliction of duty as far as I'm concerned.
What, running away?
And also the entire reason the outbreak spreads so quickly and so viciously, which is that they go, right, everyone into this safe room, and then we're just going to leave the doors unguarded. There's literally no one guarding the doors.
Yeah.
Don appears at some doors. There's no one there to stop him breaking in through the doors.
And then nothing could stop him. He's got rage.
Like 2 men with machine guns could stop him.
Yeah, 1 man with a machine gun.
1 man with a machine gun.
1 man with a handgun.
Who is there specifically to guard the door.
1 man with a spanner could probably do it. That's what he's doing earlier.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, tire thing, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah, so there you go. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's like you see all the soldiers, they're leading everyone into the room, and then they just don't bother to actually defend it.
It's almost like it's badly written. I don't know.
Maybe.
Final thought from me.
Yeah.
If you want to get on a helicopter, don't just hang off the foot.
Yeah, unless you've got supreme upper body strength.
Yeah, what do they call that? The
skids?
The skids, yeah. He's holding on to it, this chappie, the red shirt.
Yeah.
And he's flapping about. The guy's trying to shake him off. It's like, that's not how you fly a helicopter.
Yeah.
Like,
he's an unconventional pilot, isn't he?
Yeah. You just wait for the guy to fall off. Just fly up to 100
20,000 feet.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, just keep going.
Yeah.
They pick up like 40 miles an hour. The guy will fall off.
I think it's because it unbalances the helicopter, right? That's the point.
Fine, you can correct it. He seems to.
Yeah.
Like, it's rubbish. Like, what is he going to do? Put himself up? I don't think so.
No.
It's panic, isn't it?
It is
panic sets in.
Yeah.
And that's the problem. Don't panic. Don't grab onto the skid of the helicopter.
What happens to him? He falls off and then just like...
He probably falls into the propeller. Falls up under the propeller.
Maybe.
Yeah. Well, that's it. That's what I think.
That is 28 weeks later.
Yep. So that about wraps up 28 weeks later.
Yes.
My throat is jacked up from doing that zombie noise.
Yeah. Well, you put your all into it.
Yeah, I did. The thing is, mate, you have to warm up vocal exercises for that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Robert Carlyle would know that. He
would.
He did very well.
I'm sure.
So that's it. Next week we're straying into the wilderness.
Yes.
Once more.
Yeah, it's a listener recommendation. This one's from Ben, and you'd have heard us read his email out on the first How to Survive mailbag, and he recommended the Grey, which is the Liam Neeson wolf survival vehicle.
I'm looking forward to hearing Liam Neeson read the Patreon ad. I think that'll be very funny.
Yes. So look forward to that, and then the week after we're doing another listener recommendation, which was from Noyan. Again, that was from mailbag number 1. And that is the Korean film The Wailing, which comes very highly recommended by Noyan and from a lot of other people.
Yeah. And you mentioned the mailbag there a couple of times.
Yeah.
The mailbag is the Patreon exclusive podcast that we put out where we answer listener correspondence, whether that is movie talk or anything that's bothering them in their life. We are How to Survive. Started out as a movie survival podcast, but...
Life survival now.
Yeah, exactly. We helped young Ben find a girlfriend, and it was all down to us that he was able to do that. I'm sure he will agree.
Assuming that is the same Ben.
Yeah, it might be.
I don't know. We probably have more than one listener called Ben.
We don't know.
But yeah, that's patreon.com/howtosurvivepod. You can also find us at howtosurvivepod on Twitter, and you can email howtosurviveshow@gmail.com. So that's next week, The Grey.
So thank you very much for listening. And we'll see you next week. And in the meantime...